Do you think you could launch and grow a high quality video podcast using only a smartphone? A while back, I decided to toss out my fancy video equipment and test whether or not this was possible. But here's the catch. I didn't just want to create a high quality bingeable type podcast. I wanted that same podcast to help me win new clients and also produce endless amounts of video content for social media. And of course, while helping me further build my brand. So what happened? You're about to find out. Okay, so when I first had this idea, I was like, let me see how minimalist I can get with the equipment. Like, can I just use my smartphone and that's it? And create a high quality podcast? Not quite. Because the thing with just a smartphone is the sound quality wasn't good enough, right? Like it was just, I would have had to have it right here. And even then you're getting some echoes, you're getting some background noises. And I think with a podcast, it's really important that the audio is high quality because most people are going to be listening to the podcast as they're driving, as they're doing laundry, as they're working out, whatever the case may be. So I was like, all right, if I can't just do the smartphone, what about if I went wireless? Could I just go smartphone and then wireless mics? No headphones, no cords, no fancy audio interfaces, nothing like that. Just my smartphone and a pair of wireless mics. And the answer to this question is, yeah, technically you can. And we did. We filmed an entire episode using just these Rode Wireless GoPros. But if I'm being honest, I was a little disappointed with how the sound turned out. It was good. I think if you're just starting off and that's all you've got, it can work, but the sound quality just wasn't as good. And then you got things like if you clip it on the person, if they're moving or shuffling around, you kind of get some of that noise. Certainly you can place it on a stationary mic, but even with these wireless mics versus some of the corded options is they have a little bit more like up and down range when you're talking into them. They're not as stable. So you'll get some burst where it's like, it's super loud. And then you get other bursts where it's quiet and you can barely hear it. Now, obviously you can edit in post-production, but hey, I'm obviously trying to do as little work as possible and still make this high quality podcast work. So I don't want to cut out on things in the beginning when we're filming, only to have to make that work up later on. To me, that defeated the whole purpose. Now, the cool thing is you can actually check this episode out. It's the one with Jason Vanna on how to create a well-loved and profitable brand. And you'll see us wearing the Rode mics. And I look back at that and I'm like, okay. And then you compare it with the other episodes that we had. And you can just tell there's I think a significant difference in the audio. But again, could you use these? Yeah, you definitely could. But it's important I tell you all this because what I'm trying to do for you is save you a bunch of time, money, and effort by just giving you, hey, this is what works. This is probably what doesn't work. And then, of course, I will get to how do we win clients from the podcast and create a bunch of micro video clips that you can post on social to ultimately help promote the podcast and build your brand. So my next move was I upgraded to these Rode podcasting mics. This is what I'm talking into right now. And at the time, I bought these for $99 a piece. And dang, it was a steal. It does actually come with a built-in pop filter, but I did just buy for a few bucks, I think it was, an additional pop filter right here. Cha-ching! What this does is if you start getting heavy with the piece, if you just start sounding off words like pound, paper, plastic, push-up, basically that filter just blocks out the air. And so that's why it's called a pop filter, because it's preventing you guys get the point. But I'll be honest, and if you listen to the episodes, you can hear it, a massive difference between the wireless mics and then something like this. And I'm going to go through what this setup is like here in a second. But it went from sounding like pretty good, kind of like my short form videos, like, yeah, it's good quality, good crisp audio, to like, whoa, we got legit podcast audio, studio quality sound now. Of course, it can always get better. I get it. There's things you could do to make the audio even better. There's a trillion upgrades. But when I listened to that back, I was like, and even I got feedback from other people and they're like, man, your sound quality and the video quality is really good. And I'm gonna get to the video stuff here in a second. Because am I using the smartphone right now? Raise your hand, drop it in the comments. Do you think I'm using a smartphone to film this video? Or did I find something else that's a little bit better, but still easy, and it gives you high quality video output like this? I want you to drop in the comments right now and be like, yo, I'm at this point in the video, and here's my thoughts on the video. Here's what I think it is. Also, my iPhone's right here. How would I be recording on my iPhone? Unless I've got two iPhones. But anyways, back to the mics. I just felt like there was a lot of hype around the podcasting mics, that you see like with the cords and all this stuff. And I was like, man, is the hype really real? And I'm here to tell you that, yes. It really is. It is worth it. Here's what I will say, and you might be thinking this right now if you haven't created a video podcast. It seems complicated. I think that's what held me back from getting this type of equipment because I've always been like, oh, just grab your phone or your wireless mic or something simple or a webcam or whatever it is. And I was like, man, I don't want to get into all this fancy podcasting equipment. It's like you got this big studio now and you got all these different things to turn on. I'm here to tell you, it is not complicated. It was way easier than I thought. In fact, once I actually hooked it all up, I was like, why the hell did I not do this years ago? By the way, not just for the podcasting equipment or sound, for any videos that I was doing. Why didn't I have this set up before? It's crazy. So check out how easy this is. You get the mics. I got the pop filter, right? I got a simple stand from Amazon. By the way, all this stuff was from Amazon, and I'll put the links into the description of this video so you guys can snatch up anything that you want to. You're welcome. You know, I love you guys. So the mic goes right on the stand. And then the only other thing you got to get is I got these XLR cords that plug into the mic and then into the audio interface. Now, when I used to say audio interface, that was the part where I was like, X, Z, Y, minus, if I don't know what that computer, AI, seems complicated. It's not. It's really not. And again, I'll put the exact one I have in here, but there's all types of different ones. This one's, I'd say, a little bit more on the pricey side. But I also tested and tried other ones that were not the same brand, in fact, and they were really good. And it's as simple as this. It plugs into the audio interface, and then it plugs into the mic. And so if you got two, and like you see on our podcast, we usually have me and a guest, it just plugs into the back of one cord, into the mic, and then the other mic, which I have over here, plugs into that mic, and then in the back of the audio interface. It took me like 5 minutes to set this up. Here's the other thing that I was wondering about too. I was like, well, where does it plug into? Do I need like some other technology that's other than my computer, my MacBook Pro? No, you don't. This one's a USB-C connector, so it literally plugs in right here. This is it. This plugs into the audio interface. The audio interface has a cord from the audio interface to the mics, and that's it. And then I just pull up, like you can use OBS Studio, which would actually allow you to record and get the sound. Or you can use something like a Vimeo, which I'm using now, which I love the sound quality, and I can get video from my other devices too if I want separate videos, other than what I'm using now, which I'm still not ready to reveal what that is. The cool thing is too, you could use these for calls. The next time you're on a video call or a meet or a virtual event, literally when you log into the virtual event or the Zoom or Google Meets, whatever it is, you just select for this, it's audio out. And then I get to use this high quality podcasting mic. So I use it now for pretty much every single meeting that I run. Okay, so now I've got the audio thing figured out and I'm really happy with how this sounds. But how about the visual? Can I go back to that original idea of just, can I create a high quality video podcast using a smartphone? And the answer was, well, you guys tell me. All right, watch this footage right here. And you tell me this was filmed from my iPhone. You let me know if you think this is good quality or not. It's really, really, really good, right? So every episode has been filmed from my smartphone, my iPhone, and even what you're watching right now, yes, is being filmed from a smartphone, an iPhone to be exact. And yes, that means I do have two phones, and I will explain why that is in an upcoming video, because it's going to be something that you're going to be able to learn a ton from and get a lot of value from as usual. The best thing about using your smartphone, you can do 4K, HD, all that stuff, of course. It is so easy to set up. You're not dealing with the SD cards or the camera overheating or the battery packs. I can plug this thing in and film for hours and get high quality video and not have to worry about anything else. And I simply airdrop it to my computer. It's the best. Now, if you're wondering about the audio and then the visual sync, you just simply sync that up in an editing tool. It takes 2 seconds. You just sync the video up with this audio on the computer, on the MacBook, and then you're in business. You got that raw video file now to send to post-production and editing. Now, the key to getting high quality video with anything, not just using a smartphone like this, but with any recording device, is lighting. So when I'm in my home office / studio like this right here, I've got a couple different things that I'm using to help me get the best video quality from the smartphone in terms of lighting. I got a ring light, which this phone is positioned right in the middle of. And then I've got 2 side lights on both sides of me, and they're newer lights. And again, I'll put the links in the description of this video. That's really all you need. I got a couple like background lights and stuff like that, like the green accents and other stuff. This black backdrop that I also bought on Amazon that was super easy to put together. That's all extra stuff. You don't need it. But to me, having that ring light in front and then 2 lights on the side, this has been perfect. Now, when I'm on the go, because my podcast is local, so I'm only in Chicagoland. If I travel, I'll go do one on the road or something like that, but I'm not doing virtual podcasts. I'm not getting on Zooms or Riverside or StreamYard or any of those. I just don't want to do it. I want to do everything in person. For me, that is a choice. It's a long-term vision of the podcast. It's a differentiator. There's a lot of reasons that I wanted to do it. But when I am going in person and I'm not going to be here, I have this like bug out bag, which just has basically all this same equipment times 2, and it's just left in that bag. So if I'm going and doing a podcast, either I'm traveling somewhere or I'm going in the city, I just grab that bag and I go. And I can basically, because the setup is very simple and I'm just using my phone and then the audio equipment, I can take this and go anywhere and film the podcast, which is also great from a BD standpoint, business development standpoint, because I can spend quality time with prospects and customers, turn those into deals, and not have to worry about being at a certain specific location every time. The cool thing about the setup here is that pretty much once you set it, you can forget it. Once you got all this set up, you can just come in here and just hit a couple buttons on and you're ready to go. There's nothing complicated. It doesn't take 10, even 15 minutes. It's like literally less than a minute. And I would say when I'm on the go, probably 10 minutes to set up because everything's kind of coming out of that bag now and being able to be set up from scratch. And when I'm on the go in terms of lighting, and this may change in the future, I've tended just to use natural light. We'll get closer to a window where the light's kind of coming in and hitting us from the window, or we'll use lighting that the individual or company has that I'm going to be on site filming the podcast for. You just make it work. If the visual's not the greatest ever, it's okay, as long as it's good, and then the audio's crisp and clear, which it always will be because we're going to be using these. So the best part about this whole thing is I've got a simple setup that allows me to create a high quality video podcast, but I'm also able to win clients through the podcast strategy that we put in place. The way we set up our podcast is that we have potential clients as guests on the show. Now, we don't just run it like, oh, let's just have anybody on the show as long as they're a potential client. We look for good quality guests that we think would make a great show, but we've paired this with our BD strategy. So imagine spending 45 minutes, a half an hour, an hour with a potential client. I'll tell you what's going to happen. You're going to build a deeper relationship with that person, and it's likely going to turn into business. At minimum, referrals. Let me give you a good example. I recently had a prospect on the show. This is someone that we wanted to partner with as a client. We spent about 2 hours together because I actually came out to him. We set everything up. We were just talking, filmed the podcast, which was about an hour. Great conversation. I really enjoy these conversations. Like I would do this if there was no business outcome at all. I just love having these conversations. And I think you need a little bit approach it like that too. It can't just be business and X's and O's. It's got to be like, do you enjoy doing it though? Because if you don't, you're not going to stick with it long term. And then you think about, how do we turn this into a business opportunity and a great show and great social media clips and this and that? And it's possible. So anyways, we spend 2 hours together. We film a great show. We have great conversation. We take the relationship to the next level. At the end, I didn't even have to bring it up. He brought it up on how we might be able to work together, the partnership, what it would look like, what the timeline would be for something like that. And then here's what happened next. Less than 24 hours later, I sent him and his team these amazing micro clips, these video clips from the podcast that we were on that highlighted him and how good he is at his craft and his area of expertise. And he was just dropping value. We trimmed it, we had it edited, and then we sent it to them to be able to post. And they were kind of blown away by how fast everything came back and how good it looked, knowing that it was only from a smartphone and a simple setup. And not too long after that, they became a client. Now that's one of many that are going to happen as a result of this podcast. Ultimately, y'all, we know business is about building relationships and trust and credibility and likability. This is one of the best opportunities to do that. And it fuels all of your other content. So on the social media side, on the getting all these, remember I said I wanted to get all these micro video clips and all this content for social media to be able to just fuel the content machine. We're absolutely doing that, getting hundreds of thousands of impressions and views and engagement on the clips that we're creating from the actual podcast. The best part about this is I have this set up to where I just take that raw video clip from the podcast. I give it to my post producer / video editor. They create the episode trailer for each episode, which is really cool. It's a teaser. So you put it at the beginning of the episode. You can also tease it on social. They timestamp the micro clips in the episode, and then they edit the entire episode, audio and visual. So I record it, do my thing with the guest, hand it off, done. All of this can only be done if you have a solid strategy and then a solid workflow process and system, and then a solid team or help to be able to make that a reality, which is, by the way, what we help companies do. So back to the original question. Can you launch and grow a high quality video podcast for your business using only a smartphone? Not quite, but you don't need a ton more than that. That's the beautiful part about the era that we live in right now. It has never been more easy to go out and accomplish the things that you want to accomplish, build your personal brand, grow your business, empower your team. All of these things are possible, and the technology is at our fingertips. There is nothing stopping you right now. And I hope you know that. Yeah, I'm looking right in the freaking camera when I say that too. Let's get it, baby. All right, so let's get to some Q&A now, because I guarantee some of the questions that I'm going to answer right now are the same ones that are on your mind. First up, what is the post-production process like for a video podcast, and who do you have to help with that? So as I mentioned before, I take the raw video clip from the podcast and I go And that's it. That's my process. Now, obviously, there's a lot in between that, and there's roles that need to be defined, and there's processes that need to be put in place to be able to take it and let someone run with it. But it's two core things. You're going to want a project management tool, more than likely, to build out that step-by-step process. So we use Trello, for example, where the raw video content will come in. I just simply upload it in G Drive. There's an automation through Zapier that once it's uploaded, it automatically creates a card in Trello with the file in it. So again, literally, I just upload it and then walk away. Done. Then the podcast producer / editor can come in and take that video clip. And then what we've created is a just long SOP on what does he or she do A to Z. First, they look at the audio video quality, right? They make adjustments there. Then they create that trailer teaser video. That's usually 30 to 45 seconds. Then they timestamp the clips in there to be able to pass on to our other editors. Then they send the final video ready to be uploaded. And then what I use is I use a ChatGPT prompt, and feel free to ping me in the comments. I'll just give it to you, where I basically ask ChatGPT, hey, I've got a podcast. Here's what it's about, yada, yada, yada. Here's the guest I have on. I want to highlight a few things. And then it creates the entire description for the podcast. And then I've got my own template stuff that I put in there too. So even that part's easy. It's just like, it takes literally 5 to 10 minutes. Question number 2, how do you get solid guests booked on your podcast consistently? I think one of the best places to get solid guests on your podcast is LinkedIn, especially if it's more of a B2B, like business focused podcast. Because here's the thing, you can reach out to people. You can engage with their content, or maybe they've engaged with yours if you're building your personal brand. So now it's really easy to reach out and ask them because they already know, like, and trust you to a certain extent. But even if it's cold, if you've done a nice job in creating good podcast clips or trailers or teasers, it's a well done show. You've got 2 big value props that you're giving to people for being on the show right off the bat. You're not asking for anything but just a little bit of their time. The first value prop is you're saying, hey, I'm going to get you a bunch of free exposure on LinkedIn, other platforms, wherever that may be. Again, that's why having a personal brand matters. You have leverage. If you have 100 followers across all platforms, you don't have that leverage. The second thing is you can give them free content to be able to post. Now, most people aren't doing videos crazy. They don't have videos coming out every single day, every single week. So if you say, hey, I'm going to give you 3 to 4 high quality video clips that you will be able to post for free on your social platforms, most people like that idea. So there's other stuff that we do, obviously, and there's frameworks and kind of scripting that we get into with some of these messages, but that's it in a nutshell. How do you distribute your podcast to all of the platforms? We use Spotify for podcasters. It was formerly Anchor, and then they merged, I believe. But it's as simple as once you sync it all together, you upload one video, and then it goes to the different platforms. So from that standpoint, it's pretty easy. How do you turn your podcast guest into paying clients? I'd say 3 core things. 1, you need to create a really good show that your potential clients would want to be on. Meaning, don't skip out on crappy audio or bad video or no trailers or teasers, or the artwork looks like crap, or the show's just the first 20 minutes are, so I guess what's your story? Like, make a damn good podcast. You know what I'm saying? Like, get people excited to want to be on the show. That has been a strategy for us, and it has worked. When people see our clips from the podcast, they go, I want to be on that show. Number 2, embed a good sales process in the podcasting SOP. So instead of just hitting play and doing the episode and then be like, all right, we'll see you later. We'll send you some of the clips. You can post it and we'll tag you. Intentionally spend 5, 10, 15 minutes, whatever it is, before the cameras start rolling, and ask some good questions about their business, their goals. Start understanding where they're coming from, who they are as a person, where their business is at, and where you could potentially help. Now, I'm a big fan of letting some of this stuff just happen very naturally and organically too, but even at the end of the podcast, you again could follow up and then potentially get something in calendar. Said, you mentioned X, Y, and Z at the beginning before we started rolling. I'd love to talk to you about that. That's something our company helps out with other companies just like yours. No pressure at all, but if you got 10, 15 minutes, I'd love to show you what's working in the industry right now as it relates to that. Maybe some examples of how other companies have helped overcome this problem or gotten the results that you want. And then totally up to you from there. So it's not pressure. You don't want to make this into a sales situation. Sometimes if it doesn't feel right, don't press on it. The last thing you want is for them to feel like, oh God, they got me on the podcast. Now they're just trying to sell me. You don't want it to be that, but you do need to be intentional. And number 3, work your referral strategy. This is going to be your best friend. 1, you got to have great guests on the show, because if you don't, you're going to create bad episodes. They're not going to have referrals. They're not going to be excited to share the clips on social and talk about the podcast with other people. But the other thing is you really need to be asking during that process with them for additional people that would be in your target demographic that you want on the show, potential clients, but that would make for good guests. Because guess what? Those are other potential clients. All right, so that does it. Thank you so much for being here, for watching, for supporting the channel. Definitely make sure you like this video and subscribe if you haven't already, because I tell you what, I have a lot more videos like this, not just podcasting, but just video content, video marketing, social media marketing. And there's some innovative stuff that nobody else is talking about on YouTube right now that I am going to take you through and help you learn. Even some new things that I'm doing that's going to be way outside of my comfort zone. So stay tuned, get subscribed. And hey, also don't forget to check out the podcast, the Founder Talk podcast. It is in the description. Go check it out so you don't have to just take my word for it. You can actually watch and listen to the episodes. Thanks so much, and I'll see you soon.